Hi everyone. I wanted to film a short video talking about the writing process since we want to do a sort of overview before you begin writing your first essay, which is the process analysis essay. So I want to talk a little bit about what we mean when we say we have essay expectations. For some of you, you might have recently taken an English course. For others of you, it might have been multiple months, if not years. And so what to expect when you are asked to write an essay or an academic essay in college. So usually you are striving for a couple body paragraphs, anywhere from 2 to 5 to 10, depending on the length of the requirement. And those body paragraphs will help provide support and logic for your thesis statement. And your thesis statement will be found at the end of your introductory paragraph. It is your topic plus your stance on it. So for this first essay, the process analysis essay, you are teaching your audience or giving advice to your audience on how to do something related to being a college student and specifically being a college student at Western. So you might say something like, to be successful at Western, it takes three main uh, focus areas. So that could be your thesis area. And then the next sentence would be a preview of what you believe those three focus areas would be. So you want to, in your thesis statement, give a preview, and that's how you can then arrange your body paragraphs. So if you said to manage your time well as one focus area, to seek help when you need it as your second focus area, then you know that body paragraph 1 would be about time management, body paragraph 2 would be about seeking help. So it helps your reader understand the organization of your paper. Readers like to know what's coming, and we like a little bit of a preview and a review. And as the writer of an essay, it's your job to do that for us. So for this first essay, you're probably not going to need to cite sources, but we will get into that if you do need to cite them. And that was listed on the previous slide. But basically, you're looking at arranging your essay in a way that makes sense. And since we're working with process analysis, oftentimes there's a chronological process in what you do, or at least categories that you want to focus on that you can help arrange your paper. When we talk about writing, we talk about what's known as the rhetorical triangle. And it's a fancy way of saying that there are different areas that we have to focus on when we write to an audience. And sometimes we have a problem writing because we don't feel like people are actually reading what we're writing. But for this class and other college classes, you're writing for your instructors and you're writing for your peers. And sometimes instructors will ask you to share your work with wider networks, to publish it elsewhere, or to put it on our Wink journal, which is an online student writing portfolio, basically. And so when you think about writing, think about who you are as a writer. So for this first essay, hopefully you're writing a topic that you feel you know a lot about. So let's say if you picked to give us advice on how to get along with a roommate, maybe you've had some good and bad roommate experiences. And so you're coming from a point of ethos, where you have credibility to talk about that. And you're going to share your experiences. It also means that if you ever do cite sources, that you're citing reputable, credible, recent sources so that we know as readers we can trust the information you're giving us. The next part is pathos, or the audience. We want to appeal to our audience in everything that we do. We don't want to pander to them, but we want to appeal to them and give them information that they find useful. And so if you're talking about budgeting, maybe some of your students in your audience have been budgeting since they were 13 and they're really experts at it. But maybe somebody else is fresh out of high school, fresh out of living with parents, and has never had to manage money before. So you have to be aware that there are going to be differences in the expert level of your audiences, and you have to try to find that sweet spot to address the common denominator, if you will. Pathos also deals with the use of emotion, and this is a good place to use personal stories, to use humor in your tone, to help appeal and make a connection with your audience. And then your logos is your message. It is what you write, how you write it, the order in which you write it, the word choice you use to deliver that message. And in order to be believable, our writing has to have evidence. It's one thing for me to say cats are better than dogs, but if I don't have reasons, one of your gut instincts is probably to argue that point. And so if I lay out reasons, that will help me try to convince you. You might not be convinced, but at least I have reasons and evidence to help guide you toward seeing my side of the argument. So the rhetorical triangle just deals with ethos, pathos, and logos. You, the writer, the audience, and the message that you're giving. Rhetoric is a fancy way of saying what we do when we write in all forms. And some will say that all forms of communication are persuasive, if you will. And a good piece of writing expertly crafts and uses all components of the rhetorical triangle. So I have a kind of broken triangle down at the bottom, if you will, and it shows that if you are relying too heavily on emotion or too much pandering to your audience, you're not doing as ethical a job of writing a well-constructed, well-delivered, well-supported paper because you're trying to appease your audience too much. So you want to be aware of having kind of a nice combination of all three of those components. And we see this bad rhetoric when we get into advertisement and marketing. And the ethos of advertisement is not necessarily like a nonprofit mission. Its mission is to sell you things. And so they bend and break the rules whenever they can because they're trying to sell you something. But as an ethical writer writing an academic essay, you want to be respectful of your audience and to help them and not to sell them something necessarily. We are always looking to appeal to our audience, and that means that we know who they are, again, instructors and classmates, and we want to be able to give them information that they don't already know or expand upon that information. If we don't provide them with new information, the chances are that they'll skim what we've given them and they won't find it relevant or interesting. And we want to help teach them things, especially with this first paper. So it might even behoove you to start asking some of your classmates, whether you know them or just in chat, in discussion boards, what do you know about budgeting? Have you ever lived with a roommate? Anybody have a worst case scenario to share with me? And you can start to get an understanding of who your audience is. I know I certainly lived with a couple different people when I went to college, some good, some not so good. And if I had to do it over again, there are things that I would do differently. And that's what I would want to write about if I were to write on that topic. So think about, when you think about your audience, who they are, again, classmates and your instructors, think about what they know already and what they're interested in. And think about how they feel about a topic. I know when my husband brings out the spreadsheets to start talking about budgets, it's not my favorite topic. But when I can see the relevance in my life, when he can say to me, okay, if we do this, then we can save money to do this, it becomes more relevant to me. And so in your intro often is where you want to tell your audience why they should care about the particular topic. So if we're talking about things like succeeding in college, getting along with roommates, enjoying the town of La Crosse in the summer, tell us why that's important to us, especially as new or incoming students. You're going to build your credibility, and that for this first paper especially might mean telling personal stories, giving some advice from experiences that you've had, good or bad. I also had a term in my college experience where I almost failed, and so sharing that and how I would do things differently. Know your purpose. In this first paper, it is to inform. You're trying to teach people something. You might be trying to persuade them to do well, but that's the secondary purpose. And when you write for pleasure, poetry, short stories, that's often to entertain or express. I'm going to skip past a couple of these and move on to pre-writing. You're going to have pre-writing due soon, and that means that you'll pick a technique that works best for you to do some thinking about the topic before you actually write a first draft. And since my little timer is showing me that I'm running out of time, I'm going to record a short film giving you some examples of what those look like. So that's a quick overview of the writing process. We start by pre-writing, we write a rough draft, we get some feedback on it, we make some revisions, we edit it, and then we do a final draft. And that process continues until we're satisfied with the final product. It's not just I sat down and typed my paper and then I'm done, because very few writers in the world, including myself, that's not the best work that you're going to put out. You have to think about it, talk about it, ruminate on it, get some people to look at it, and then keep tinkering with it until it gets to the point where you're satisfied. So short and sweet overview of the writing process. Look for a video coming soon on pre-writing. Thanks.